that smell?
There's 1,000 crew on this ship. Wastewater has to go somewhere.
Hello there!
Freeze!
I'm not going anywhere. And there's no need to point that thing at me.
Who are you?
Dr. Howell, agricultural engineer. And relax, that isn't grey water. We're below hydroponics. What you smell is nutrient effluence. Who are you?
Sergeant Weller, ship security. What are you doing here?
There was some kind of fight in hydroponics, and I heard on the radio about an attack through the vents. I decided to wait down here till security gave the all clear. Is that why you're here?
Not exactly, Doctor.
Why don't you get up here and tell me what's going on? Come and dry off, you must be wet through.
Best bloody idea I've heard in a long time.
Don't leave us!
There's nothing I can do! I'm sorry!
McNeil, get your gun ready! There, on the hand, shoot it!
May be safe in there.
Use your stasis and get in there!
No good. It's blocked.
Neil, get out of there!
McNeil, TK one of those canisters! Keep
We're not done yet. Look out! We're not done yet. We're not done yet. Look out! Is it dead?
How about we don't hang around to find out?
Oh, fuck you, Weller. It was a simple bloody question. Yes or no would have sufficed.
Hey, that's enough. Look, there's a hatch on the roof. The doc said hydroponics was above us, right?
Assuming she was telling the truth.
You want to stay here? You go right ahead. I'm getting out.
Like Gears of War 2, Dead Space Extraction here didn't do the boss fight thing until around the halfway point in the entire game. Such a move can be a bad one to do, as the player has no idea of what to expect from the fights, and since they're pushed so far back on the difficulty curve, there's little chance of there being a tutorial to help players fill in the gaps. So you end up with this giant monster over here that you have to defeat using the combat skills from the regular enemies, which doesn't cut the damn cake. Now, I don't want to sound too narky against the Urchin here. Yeah, it's a good enough name. Kinda sounds like the naming rights are won by the Silent Hill team, though. Anyway, the Urchin wasn't a terrible boss fight filled with bullshit and about as easy to defeat as the Maze from that Maze Runner movie using a plastic spoon. Sure, it's a bit fidgety and unintuitive, there's not a lot of feedback from the game to figure out what you are supposed to be doing, and the lack of an ability to move freely around the battlefield means that you get locked into the Urchin's invulnerable areas for no other reason than this game being an on-rails shooter. The idea of this boss fight is that you have to fend off the Urchin's attacks until you get around to the room's turbines, which you slow down and use to chop off its tentacles, and then finish off the main body. Since Dead Space Extraction is one of those games that foregoes boss fight health bars, you really have no idea what you are doing damage to throughout this entire thing. And especially in the second half when you have to deal with the main body. Yes, don't worry, I know that the Urchin at that point has a giant glowing heart wiggling around the water that you can shoot, but you have to remember that its mouth is also hanging open and spewing abuse and snot at the protagonist, and if you're a veteran to video games, then you end up getting confused by the Urchin having two obvious weak points simultaneously. You are probably not going to die from the Urchin's lack of feedback and user harshness, but with how much you can't understand about what it's doing, it ends up being frustrating and a consistent annoyance that can last a fair amount of time just because the game doesn't tell you what you are supposed to be doing. Plus, it's not even cinematic or anything, since the Urchin just randomly showed up when the main characters were on their way to something else that the necromorphs could have no clue about what they were doing. It's just one of those fights that make you praise the sky when the game finally lets you out of the room and on with your life.